A very good day to you wherever you're watching us from. Thank you so much for watching Smart 24 TV, the number one business channel. Thank you, of course, for tuning in for the latest on now the financial markets updates. And my name is Anthony Sebali. Remember, this show is probably brought to you by OTEX East Africa, your number one private stock exchange. And with OTEX, we say you can do something new by being able to buy treasury bonds using your mobile money. Now with OTEX, you can simply dial *292#. Following the prompts, you can register and learn more about products as well as buy or sell those treasury bonds that might be your favorite on the East African market. At OTEX, we start with as little as 15,000 Ugandan shillings per trading, at as little as that, and up to the amount you desire to invest. And this money can be got off your mobile phone onto OTEX East Africa. Markets at OTEX open at 8 a.m. and they close at 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. OTEX East Africa, do something new. Now let's get right into the business of trading. As per yesterday, of course, a lot happened, and starting off with the U.S. markets, you're going to see into, of course, what seemed to be a very slightly less active day, and more losses there on the big indexes like the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Of course, this was following Jerome Powell's speech, which, of course, he had within an interview as well, mentioning a few things concerning the disinflation that was explained by the Federal Reserve meeting last week as well, after the announcement of good jobs data last week. So there was a little bit of decline in performance there on the US indexes, as well as we are going to see later on. But generally speaking, across the African continent, on the major stock exchanges such as the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, they had a good day with over 2,000 points appreciation in the value there of the all-share index, and the Nigerian Stock Exchange as well, with a 127 point gain on their all-share index appreciated, and Nairobi Securities Exchange at 0.19 points on their index there. Johannesburg Stock Exchange had close to 306 points, and the Ghana Stock Exchange, on the other hand, registered a decline, as we shall see later on in the show. But starting off with the Uganda Stock Exchange, on average, on the 8th of February, the all-share index further appreciated 1.52%. When you look at the points here, 1.52 points and 0.12% on the benchmark index there, that is the all-share index. And on aggregate, 3 equities participated in trading on the exchange, including Umeme, Stanbic Bank and MTN Uganda, with Umeme coming out with the biggest volume on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, the day ended with 3 gainers and 3 losers, a quite balanced market outlook here on the 3rd day of trading. And Centum Investments led the gainers this time round with a total appreciation of 1.83%, up to 262.37 points. The KCB Group as well, their counter gained about 0.78%, upwards to 1,134.98 Ugandan shillings. Equity Group Holdings gained the 2nd day in a row at a 0.44% appreciation in price, up to 1,356.08. Unfortunately, there were no gainers from the domestic equities, neither were there losers as well from the domestic equities. The domestic equities seem to be a little bit relaxed this time round, especially in the year 2023. Now, we haven't seen very many movements. We just saw a little movement in Stanbic Bank in the middle of January there to 23 shillings, and then the stock later on depreciated back to 21 shillings. We've seen MTN maintain 180 shillings. We also saw New Vision Printing and Publishing Company at about 5 shillings a couple of days into January 2023. But basically, on average, not much price changes have been registered on domestic listings. Now, on the losing side, we had still Nation Media Group across listing come at the bottom with a close to 2.33% depreciation in price. Now, this was closing at 431.88 Ugandan shillings as the closing price for this particular stock. Jubilee Holdings stock, limited stock as well continued to lose further, about 1.75%, down to 5,380.10. East African Breweries Limited, the biggest brewery in East Africa, as well depreciated 0.42%, down to 5,225.33 Ugandan shillings. There's been a lot of volatility amongst cross listings recently. That could be actually attributable to the different changes in the exchange rates, especially between the Kenyan shillings and the Ugandan shillings, as well as the dollar as well, on the different exchange rates trading. And now when you look at the current figures here, cross listings definitely haven't contributed to the volumes in a very, very long time. However, they do have very volatile stocks. When it comes to price changes, they have a lot of price changes, as you may witness recently on the stock exchange. Now, at the end of the day's trading yesterday, close to over 536,800 shares were traded in total, and the day ended with a 617% improvement in volume, of course comparing that with the Tuesday tradings. And the current market capitalization of the Uganda Securities Exchange currently stands at 21 trillion Ugandan shillings. And in aggregate, looking at the top movers, Umeme still recorded biggest volume and turnover consequently, with over 366,400 shares that were traded on the third day of trading on the Uganda Securities Exchange. And Stanbic Bank at 160,000 shares came in the second place, whereas MTN Uganda came closing at 10,400 shares, 10,400 shillings that was recorded on the Uganda Securities Exchange. As for the all-share index, as I mentioned earlier on the show, we had a 0.12% appreciation up to up to a daily gain of 1,216 points closing the day. And when you look at the 1 week gain, currently it's at 0.49% that was registered on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Now, a 4 week loss of 18.465% has been still recorded on the all-share index. The local company index still maintains the points at 274.10 points that are currently on the local company index. Currently, this represents a 4 week gain of 0.44% on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Remember, trading on the Uganda Securities Exchange begins at exactly 9 a.m. East African Standard Time and closes at 1 p.m. So by the time this show starts, definitely trading is ongoing, and you can be able to buy and sell shares on the Uganda Securities Exchange if and only if you have an SCD account. Now, this SCD account is an account that will help you to be able to trade on different securities in East Africa. Now, you can open this account online by going to www.use.org.org, and then you go to Easy Portal. The Easy Portal will ask you for your email, and they'll ask you for details like your national identification number, your full names, and a passport photograph, and the rest is history. That's about how much you need to be able to open yourself this account, and it's valid even when you don't have a single piece of money deposited on the account. That's how interesting this particular account is. You don't need money to actually open one. You just need the spirit and the willingness to be able to open this account and start your journey of investment. Now, as per, of course, the US e-trading, the US e-trading rules, you must, of course, have the national ID or a passport to be able to trade. So those are some of the simple basic requirements. But currently, what can you do if you are a new trader? If you're a new trader, definitely, even when you're an old trader, you must go through a licensed stockbroker. We have 5 licensed stockbrokers on the market. We do have SBG Securities. We do have as well UAP Old Mutual, and we have Sanlam. We have UAP Old Mutual. We have Cheaper Technologies there coming in as a stockbroker. We do have as well the Dyer and Blair Investment Company and the like. Those are some of the investment stockbrokers that you can find on the Uganda Securities Exchange. Away from the business of the exchange here in Uganda, off to Nairobi. Nairobi seemingly also had a good day compared to the previous days this week of trading on the Uganda on the East African markets. Now, the company had 44 listings participating in trading out of the total 65 that are listed. The day ended with 20 gainers and 15 losers on the market. Home Africa led the gainers on the market with a 6.25% price appreciation that was registered up to 0.34 Kenyan shillings per share, and supermarket at 5.56%. That was as well registered on the company, which lost on Tuesday tradings. If you are following the market, currently it's a gainer on the market, and Britam Holdings at a 3.46% gain as well. Nation Media Group lost 2.75% of their stock price on the market. On the losing side, East African Portland Cement lost some value with the biggest loss of 8.06% for the day at a closure of 6.16 Kenyan shillings per share. Now, TransCentury also lost about 5.06%, and Car and General Kenya lost 3% on the stock market, with Kaptura Tea and Company as well losing about 2.34%. Now, the day's trading was, of course, spearheaded by Safaricom this time round in terms of volume. Safaricom had the biggest volume, amounting close to 1.13 million shares that were traded on the market, recording as well one of the biggest movements in price. KCB Group also had an 828,500 shares volume on the market. Equity Group Holdings had about 543,100 shares that were recorded, and Cooperative Bank of Kenya had about 506,100 shares. As regards the total traded volumes, there was a decline of 69% in the volume, slightly lower. Of course, the day before, Kenya Power and Lighting Company had a very huge volume there on the market that influenced the trading volumes, but that, of course, I had to put the Wednesday tradings at a disadvantage in terms of volume, and the turnover as well declined 43% on the market. 19% decline is also one of the deals that was actually broken for the day. The current market capitalization of the Nairobi Securities Exchange is 2 trillion Kenyan shillings, and that's currently what we have on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. But looking at the top gainer here on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, Home Africa Limited is Kenya's only publicly traded property developer on the market, and Home Africa plans, of course, to expand to more countries in Africa. However, currently, as per the Nairobi Securities Exchange listings and positionings, it is the 60th most valuable stock out of 65 stocks, and with a current market capitalization of 138 million Kenyan shillings, it represents about 0.069% of the entire exchange. Yesterday, the company gained 0.02 Kenyan shillings to total about 0.34 Kenyan shillings per share, which was a 6.25%. Of course, this is a listing on the GEMS, or the Growth Enterprise Market segment, where we have the smaller stocks getting to list. And we see more of these on the Nairobi market, trade more often than not, especially because they are more affordable. I mean, 0.3 Kenyan shillings, comparing that to other stocks like Absa, Diamond Trust Bank, and so many others that are on the main board, is quite cheap and affordable there on the exchange. Now, as per the data here, we had about 8,100 shares that are valued at exactly about 2,754 Kenyan shillings that were traded on the Nairobi Securities Exchange over the Home Africa stock here. Now, as per trading on the market, Home Africa continues to be one of those favorites of the investors in Kenya, with its total number of shares in the last 3 months standing at 3.42 million shares, and this makes it the 19th most traded on stock within this period. Now, this means that in this period, Home Africa is amongst the top 30 companies of Nairobi Securities Exchange, the top most traded on stocks on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. The company has also added value to the shareholder in the short term, since in the last year-to-date performance, from the 1st of January to the current date, it has gained about 6.25%. That's what every shareholder has as extra value within this period. And in the last as well, when you look at the last 1 month, they also have a gain of close to about 6.25%, similar to their year-to-date performance. That is Home Africa, your biggest trader as per yesterday's data. Uchumi Supermarket as well came in the second place amongst the gainer after gaining 0.01 shillings up to 0.19 Kenyan shillings at a 5.56% gain in price. When I talk about the percentage, of course, it makes more economic sense, because we might not see the pricing as that important, just 0.01 Kenyan shillings added. But then how about for a shareholder who has 5 million shares? How much is their value? It means you're going to get 5.56% of that, and that's exactly how much extra value you have. That's how interesting the percentages are. That's why I prefer you interpret these price shifts or price gains or losses in percentages. It gives you a good picture of your own portfolio. So you just have to look at what's in your portfolio and know exactly how much you're gaining and how much you're losing. Yeah, and that's very important for you as a trader. Now, Uchumi Supermarket on the Nairobi Securities Exchange recorded close to 1,600 shares in 3 deals and had 304 Kenyan shillings as their gross turnover as well on the Nairobi Securities Exchange. And that's the trading, my friend, from the Nairobi Securities Exchange there. Remember, to trade on the Nairobi Securities Exchange is also quite easy, though of course we want to make it easier, and there is a plan to have a common market, where a common capital market, where we have the Tanzania, the Uganda, the Rwanda stock exchanges on the same platform, and we have a one-stop center for all your capital markets requirements, and you can be able to buy or sell freely without actually having to bear the costs that are currently in place. If you have to buy shares on another stock exchange that is not your mother country or mother nation's stock exchange. So there's that, of course, in the pipeline. It's being spearheaded by the African Development Bank, and Kenya is one of those that are very important when it comes to this, because it's the biggest and the busiest stock exchange. So if it doesn't join this block, it's going to be pointless, because that's where most of the activity is in East Africa. So we're looking much more forward to that. But even though without that, you can still check out stock on the Nairobi Securities Exchange, visit their website and learn more about how you can buy these shares and through which stockbrokers that they do license for that service. Away from the Nairobi Securities Exchange, getting to look into, for example, here the US stocks at the moment as per the trading yesterday, but also today as we unroll into another week, of course, of gainings and earnings that have been announced. The stock market dipped after the oil-fueled rally. Now, US stocks on Wednesday, particularly in the morning, had another bout of earnings that were able to hit the traders' desks. While enthusiasm from the previous session over the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell's speech and embracing of disinflation has been fading. Now, the S&P 500, which is a benchmark index for the top 500 American companies, had 0.4% of their price of their total value, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average edged downwards roughly by about 120 points, or roughly about 0.4%. The tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite also declined 0.6%. Remember, the Nasdaq as well as the S&P 500 are both market capitalization weighted indices, whereas the Dow Jones Industrial Average is actually price weighted average index there. And so in specific stocks movements, we had Microsoft shares rise by about 2.7%, building on Tuesday's 4% advance over the enthusiasm for a new version of its Bing search engine, running on a more powerful version of open artificial intelligence's popular ChatGPT natural language AI technology. Seems like AI is taking over the tech industry there, and currently many investors are getting more and more interested. Now, Under Armour UA was little changed as at the open of the market, with a gain of as much as 3% after the athletic apparel retailer lifted its profit forecast Wednesday morning, benefiting from discounts during the holiday season. Those were some of the highlights. Uber stock climbed at 6.3% after earnings for the last 3 months of 2022 beat the expectations, and CEO Dara Khosrowshahi said the company was focused on achieving profitability in 2023 as post-pandemic demand for ride-hailing recovers. Now, that's of course what we could get for you from the US stock market as well. Remember to check out Altex East Africa, your #1 private stock exchange. By simply dialing now *292#, you can be able to buy or sell treasury bonds across East Africa under their ZABU initiative. With this, of course, we can say you're doing something new because it's one of a kind means of being able to buy or sell treasury bonds that are traded on the secondary market all over East Africa. You can also learn more about the products. If you want to know more about what Altex has in store for you, they have an exchange traded fund where you can invest in all these places at once: Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, with as little as 15,000 Ugandan shillings getting off your mobile wallet. Altex markets open at 8 a.m. and close at 3 p.m. Altex East Africa, doing something new. Of course, thank you so much for joining us. I'll be catching you tomorrow, same time, same place. Remember to stay safe and stay tuned on Smart 24. More business coming your way. Goodbye for now.